Alright, so I think I'm going to clip this and put a quick rundown of it on YouTube real quick. I am still trying to play around with some of the kinks, but I think I may have accidentally taken my damage to new heights. As you can see, we're level 70 right now in a level 93 champion expedition. And I've been using Bleeding Edge as my physical instead of the turret lately, as I've found it's a little bit smoother, a little easier to control, all that sort of fun stuff. And then I came across something. So this little node right here increases damage per ailment stack, which seems to fit in perfect with our build. I've been struggling with damage in these upper tier. Once I get above like 20 levels, it got really rough for me. But by using Consuming Embers to try to proc 6 burns and 6 shocks with a over 50% chance, so call that every cast we've got 6 stacks, so 3 of each. But we cast 4 projectiles, so possibility for 6 to 12, call it, stacks of each, which gives us 12 to 24 ailment stacks total. And then we pop Winter's Grasp, which guarantees us 6 stacks. Well, I mean, freeze doesn't really stack, so it gives us 1 ailment of freeze. And then a 52% chance of shock. And that shock would give us 6 stacks of shock. Now with Winter's Grasp, I've actually removed the cooldown, so I can cast it freely. And I've also gone with Permafrost, which leaves a damaging area on the ground. So that ticks every so often, and then it has a chance to then apply freeze and shock as well. So I can then refreeze the enemies, which definitely helps for survivability, but I can also add more ailments. And then I can cast my Bleeding Edge at distance, which has bleed and poison chance. Now those are 35% and 37%, but still, as fast as it hits, as much as it hits, each one of those can give 6 stacks. So at a 33, consider it 2 stacks per hit of the Bleeding Edge. And then we do have some crit, not a lot, so we're at 19% crit. And then once that crits, the damage just seems to go through the roof. I'll give a quick demonstration. I don't have any funky gear or anything, just some, health, all res. I got Toxic and Rend on my weapon to give me the bleed and poison. And then I've got 244 elemental status chance there and 185% elemental chance there. So we are rocking over 400% elemental status chance. And a little bit extra material damage. But other than that, not a whole lot. I don't have the best gear as of yet. I keep changing back and forth, but we will give this a run and see how it plays in practice. So one thing I do want to point out, so I have the extra projectile, sure, but then I also have this 25% extra damage when at least 6 meters from all enemies. And now that we've leveled up, I will actually take that to 35% right there. We have all the extra willpower and rage there. We have our plus 10 stacks over here, our plus 10 stacks here, our extra 2 stacks per hit, our double stacks, and our 2 additional stacks per hit as well. Bunch of stat chance. I do have some cast and cost reduction, as well as some cooldown reduction. We got some life nodes, more life nodes. I do have life leech on, which that combine. I may wind up taking that off. Honestly, I think the Bleeding Edge life gain is more than enough. I did actually come up into Child of Fury to get extra fire damage, and up into Oracle of the Trinity, which is new, to get this Ancient Fervor. since we do cast all of these basically, but mainly fire and frost, then we get 20% extra damage and 50% extra ailment chance. And even if we proc the lightning, then we get 50% critical strike chance. And then also grabbing the 5% and the 15% here, as well as the extra accord, so we do keep both of those accords up. And right now I've kind of split between ferocity and wisdom. I was kind of pushing ferocity up to around 20%, so I'll put that back in there. Actually, that was only 0.3, and that's 0.3 as well. So not a whole lot there. So I'll put it back in the ailment chance. That way the frost on the ground, the permafrost, has a better chance of CCing and keeping things away from us. I have increased movement speed since I don't like to just jump around as much. I've been doing that on a lot of other builds, and honestly it's such a pain with resources. But as you can see, we just melt through things again. So we've gotten back to where our like storyline progression damage was, as well as some safety with the freeze to keep everything away. And we just keep everything at bay and eliminate them from there. So I do still consider this a cast build necessarily, because I'm not stacking physical damage, I'm not running a physical weapon. One other thing that the permafrost helps with is breaking bosses, or big guys. As you can see, he drops pretty easily. And then we just, freeze them at range and let the bleeding edge do the work. The dots will take care of a lot of the little guys, but as these dots stack up on the enemies, the bleeding edge damage spikes up there. I've seen 100,000 crit, and I'm not even crit building. I don't have any of the crit damage nodes. I don't have a 400 damage two-handed weapon. I mean, our base damage is like 3,000. But the way this seems to stack up, there you're getting 50,000, and I didn't even put a round of fireball on them or ember. And there we got 100,000 crit, and we barely put much in the way of ailments on him. Which is why we can stack this up on the bosses, and it just melts them. So it's nice to be able to bring the damage back and still retain some survivability, because it gets pretty rippy up here. No doubt about that. That's one thing the bleeding edge builds and the warriors and that have that a lot of the mages don't right now is survivability. I have tried energy shield to no avail. I did not like how it worked, mainly because if you go down, you start back up with no energy shield. So if you've got everything stacked into that, and the one that gives you double energy shield but maxes your life at 5%, you come back up very squishy. And if you're in the middle of a boss fight, that's game over, because you won't recover. So there we have a couple of bosses, little mini boss guys. And we'll just keep everybody at bay. Throw our shit at them. Watch them take a lot of damage from the dots, and then bleeding edge just gets rid of them. And like I said, I like the survivability with Winter's Grasp, to where I can just freeze everything, keep it at bay, while I build up all my dots, and then deal my damage. And for, the spirit of caster, I am pretending that this Bleeding Edge is just like a tornado skill or whatever that builds on status ailments. Definitely how I'm treating it, at least. We'll put it that way. Whether you agree, that's up to you. One thing I do think, since this doesn't abuse any of the multiple stacking damage buffs or the shield buff, I do think it's pretty safe from being nerfed, this interaction, but I could see it being capped. So say like a max of 5 ailments or whatever. But for the moment, yeah, considering we only have 200% crit damage, that would mean our normal crit would do, what, maybe 9k? And we're boosting it all the way up to 100,000 easy. And then we get to actually take advantage of the life gain on the rend damage from Bleeding Edge as well. This is what helps to keep my life nice and full. And even when we run short on willpower, we can just throw a couple of those down, get all our willpower back. And even without being fully stacked, just between themselves, they'll stack a decent amount of damage, a decent amount of ailments on them pretty quickly, which will ramp up their own damage. If I could get a secondary element on just my Winter's Grasp, I would go for Curse. So there you can see we broke him with Winter's Grasp, and then we'll ramp up our Bleeding Edge, and he's gone. Those alabasters are a pain in the ass. But even with one as mobile as that I can't freeze, I can still break and stack what I need to on him, and then he goes down. Some of them you can just outright freeze. But there we were hitting 36,000 without crit. Now we'll go into the boss fight, and as long as it's not the little shield fuck, we'll be good. Yeah. Alright, cool. So we're gonna piss him off at range. Alright, he can't be stunned or broken. So we will back away from him and get a few of those going. Let's get some helmet stats on him. And there he goes. 117,000 crit. With, again, not being focused into the crit. Which means if I wanted to build into crit, I could probably push that even higher and just use the elements to stack. But for the moment, I like it still being a very cast focused build. I'd love to hear how the build works out for you. Greatly appreciate any feedback. I'll keep trying to refine it, and hell, it's even changed about 3 times today as I've been trying to make it better and better. Nice, they can be frozen. It's unfortunate for them.
It's not possible. use that right now.
Do I proc any occult ailments? Yes, I do. That is with the Mark of Impurity. And that's where we get our 24 stacks of Curse. That's the only one I use. And that's only for bosses. Or things that just refuse to die.
Not possible.
Other than that, we're mainly elemental. We hit every elemental, and then we hit 2 of the material. Ooh, fun, we got the gold one.
Can't be done.
See, like this guy, I'll put a mark on and get some curse going.
Can't do that right now.
Spell that can proc Sacred Shadow on its own. There is. So, Winter's Grasp can actually proc Shadow, but we use it so much for the freeze, for survivability. So that's why I don't want to use that one off. And then, let's see here. Arctic Spear can cause weakness. So that one can trigger the weakness there with your sacred. Now, when in beta, when weakness was actually increasing the damage they were taking, people were running this in dot builds because you could very easily just run by and fire a couple of them off and stack weakness on them. But now weakness reduces the damage they deal, so it's not as valuable, but you could easily sub any of those in for Aether Jump. As you notice, I don't use it very much. Really, I kind of use it when I'm running low on stamina as an extra free dodge. Some other ones that apply some natural that you can play around with is Plague Burst for poison. So I've used that one to kind of proc. And that's a kind of a fun one if you wanted to like throw this on here, show you how this works. That's a lot of loot, and I'm already full inventory. Nice. So with this one, what you'd do is you'd freeze, you'd Plague Burst. Oh, I've got it on my, hang on. Let me change its nodes, because that won't do any good. Where's the one you can put it wherever you want? There you go. Cast at location. Alright, let's try this again. So this one's kind of fun for like clearing trash and that. That's the boss already. I want a movement potion so badly. Alright, here we go. So we pop that, we pop the poison. which allows it to proc and spread.
I can't carry that.
So I actually might use that for a little bit. See if these are any good. 158 material resist, 39 toughness. Yeah, I'll put them on. So this one then spreads that poison as they blow up. Yeah, it deals poison around, so then it can poison and shock and kind of spread that. Which is nice for clear. And it looks pretty cool.
That's not.
Ow.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall.